Now joined by former Nebraska quarterback Ron Kellogg. How you doing, my friend?
Doing great. How you doing?
Dude, life is good. I appreciate you taking the time. So let's start right off the top. All right, coaching the Carriker kids. All right,
Yeah.
What is that like, my friend? Are you pulling your hair out? Are you having fun? Is the dad a pain in the butt to deal with? Tell the fine folks about this.
It's a blast, first of all, because they're great listeners. And so usually I don't have to repeat myself when giving an instruction, usually more than once. And then they're also great at asking questions on stuff they might not understand, or maybe it's a different way that I can explain it to them so that it clicks for them. So it's actually a blessing in disguise. So I'm really thankful for the parents that probably had to deal with that quite a bit in his time being an athlete. So it just transcends down to the kids.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to coach them. I know Addie got better in the long jump. Jacob's looking forward to football again at Standing Bear High School. So talk real quick about Standing Bear. Now, you guys are going to have essentially 22 returning starters because there was no senior class last year, so everybody's coming back essentially this year. Talk about competing in Class B. What kind of your expectations are year two playing varsity football this year for Standing Bear High?
Blessing in disguise that we got 22 guys coming back. That's probably a beautiful thing of being a brand new high school. But it's also great to add in a senior class just to have that senior leadership a little bit. It's also a great way for our juniors to develop that skills and kind of learn a little bit from the seniors as they move into their next year, becoming the seniors of the school. As we all know, Class B is probably a really tough class in the state of Nebraska. So there's a lot of great teams out there. So we're really excited to, play the same teams that we played last year and hopefully give them a better shot for their money now that we have a little bit more confidence in what to expect in a varsity type game atmosphere. So far this summer, it's been awesome. We actually been in our weight room. The first 2 years has been kind of hard because we didn't have our school finished. So being year two in our weight room has been a blessing in disguise, and kids are starting to really gravitate towards why the weight room in the summertime is important and how that transitions into the fall. And so I'm just really excited for these kids to get inside the playbook, really dive into their why, and understand what their role and responsibility is. And so hopefully they can showcase that on Friday and Thursday night.
Now, for those who don't know, Standing Bear actually won their last two games of the high school football season last year. So they're technically on a two-game winning streak, and so made some improvements throughout the year. So that was awesome to see. Before we dive into a little bit of Husker talk, there's two other questions I want to ask you. As an offensive coordinator, what is your philosophy as an OC of a high school football team? How do you approach calling plays and developing an offense?
For me, it's mostly understanding what am I supposed to be doing at a certain moment. So as long as we can understand what our role is, the other parts of the game become easier. So in particular, we like to focus on what does a coverage look like for our wide receivers, our tight ends, and our running backs, because that usually dictates the rest of the defense. So if you can understand the why and how of a defense, it's easier to put yourself in position to be more successful. For our offense, we're a power rate, so we like to run and throw the ball. So all guys need to understand, what am I doing in my blocking? And then what am I doing in my route? Is my route mostly for me, or am I helping my teammate? And so really getting into the understanding and education of that part is pivotal for us to be successful as we get throughout the season. And it's something that we learned in college football, especially being in the quarterback room. There's a lot of different things for everybody to understand and know. And usually it's not on one person, but in the quarterback room, we have to, because if we don't know, nothing really works. So we really want to try to instill that into our kids and let people know, hey, it's not just the quarterbacks that need to know what's going on. Everybody needs to go know what's going on, because it's 11 guys versus 11 guys. It's not 1 versus 11. And so I think the more that we can instill that into our kids, hopefully the more they have confidence when we get into fall camp, and then that confidence can show out when we get into the season. When it gets to 7-on-7 and stuff like that, for our receivers, it's really working on route development. How can I run my route against certain coverages that will make sure that I am getting the ball, or at least I'm giving myself an opportunity to have the ball thrown to me, or I can help out my my teammates that are also running the same concepts as me. And so for us, it's just day by day grinding. answering a lot of the same questions. But I love answering questions because the more questions that you ask me, that shows that you, one, care, two, you want to be better.
It's interesting because you make a lot of good points. When you talk about explaining the why, though, so the way I was raised was you don't speak unless spoken to, and you do what you're told and you don't ask questions. That's just how I was raised. And so when I started coaching, all right, youth sports and helping out with high school and doing things over the years, I don't want to say I had that exact mentality, but I was a little bit like, all right, I'll answer your question, but now you need to go do it, you know? And then I watched, it was about 5 years ago, ESPN was doing a special on Alabama's preseason camp, their fall camp. And Saban openly talked about explaining the why and why this particular generation needs to know the why. And he's like, you can rep something without explaining the why 20 times, but if you just explain the why and rep it 5 times, they'll get it faster. And so there aren't many more hard-nosed individuals out there than Nick Saban. I'm like, if he can do this, and this is his attitude, I'll try it. And I tell you right now, he's right. You can do it 20 times without explaining why. You may or may not get it. They may or may not get it. You explain it once, and they do it 3 or 4 times. They catch it that much faster. So that's a phenomenal point. All right, man, one last question before we get to some Husker takes. You're doing a lot of things with youth, with schools, helping youth in the Lincoln area and in the community. Tell the fine folks what you're doing, and if they want to help out, how they can do so.
Well, we recently have been a part of a task force with the city of Lincoln, with some of our leaders of Lincoln, working out a way to better the city of Lincoln when it comes to us being healthy as a community, especially focusing on our students. And what we're raising up is a opportunity where we have 5 guidelines that we feel as a group would be beneficial for the city of Lincoln to participate in. And that's information that they can find out on www.catlincoln.org. And so that's something that just came out a couple days ago. We were at a press conference where we unveiled our 5 reasons or whys that we want to instill in the city of Lincoln. On top of that, as a CLC community builder, we have been doing summer youth camps just to get kids outside and get into the action of playing. When we get into the school year, we are participating in our 2nd year of our CLC league, which we offer soccer in the fall, cross country in the fall. And then when we get into the winter time, we offer basketball and then also volleyball. So it's an opportunity for kids in those CLC schools as elementary students, both grades 4th through 5th, to participate and understand what it's like to be on a team sport, especially at your school, and show some school pride. And at the same time, have fun and learn all the life skills that sports can offer kids.
All right, man. If people want to help out with what they're doing, they're trying to help kids in the community, make an impact, make sure you go do that if that's something that you're so inclined to do. Love what Ron's doing in the community in so many different ways. All right, we go to the Huskers just a little bit. Got to ask about your career and a couple of things. We've chatted about this in the past, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
All right, coming into your senior year, Taylor's the starter, 4-year starter. He gets banged up. You and Tommy are kind of battling out for number 2, number 3, starting once Taylor gets kind of banged up a little bit. What was that like for you? Obviously, you were more the senior, I believe. I believe Tommy was a little bit younger at the time. And actually, tune into the captain right after this. Tommy Armstrong, Jake told me, is going to be joining the captain here on 93.7 The Ticket. So what was that process like? And then, dude, the Hail Mary versus Northwestern, I've asked you before, but you got to tell us about it again. All right, so what those 2 things? Give us your thoughts on those.
Okay, well, the first thing, getting into Taylor getting injured, it was one of those situations where you kind of always have to be ready. You never know when your moment's going to come. So I'm just very thankful that I had the opportunity to, be on the travel squad early, understand what it is to be like prepared as a backup. And then also, how do you execute when your number's called? So it's one of those things where it's a lot of watching reps and asking questions. So that's where I get my philosophy from when I'm coaching. Is I myself ask a lot of questions. So when I did get my chance, it was how can I execute and make sure that I'm putting our team in the right situation. And it's one of those things where you had to kind of get used to having a couple series here and then coming out, watching Tommy go in, have a couple series. But it was also great where we could both collaborate with each other and talk about what we're seeing and make sure that we're all putting the team in the best situations. It's not one of those things where there was like jealousy or anything, because at the same time, I knew it was my last year, and that guy, Tommy, was going to be the guy that was going to be leading the school for the next 3 or 4 years. And so it was a moment that went super fast, but it was a moment that I also really enjoyed. And it's something that I can share with people wherever I'm at out in the community. We can always have a conversation about it. When it comes to that Hail Mary situation, boy, oh boy, I didn't think I was going to be in that situation, because I don't know if people remember, I threw a pick right before halftime. And it was a miscommunication on my part where I was trying to throw it to Amir, and I think I threw it a little too far, a little too high for him. So I didn't think I was going to play the rest of that game, honestly. I thought Tommy was going to handle it, and we were going to go into the next week. But one of the things that I was really good at was 2 minutes. And so everybody knows I was not a runner. I was kind of a big guy. And I'm prideful about that. So I like being in the pocket and throwing the ball. So being able to execute those 2 minute situations, and then getting to the point where I thought I was going to be able to get us down to get a field goal. I was not in any shape or way trying to get us to a Hail Mary. And what's funny about that is I was the person that usually always watched the Hail Mary reps in practice. I never actually threw one myself. And so it's kind of ironic that I was put in a situation to do that, and it ended up being successful.
Dude, one of the most memorable plays in Husker football history. I've asked Jordan Westerkamp about it too. Just a memorable play, man. All right. I appreciate you taking the time, my friend. Thank you very much.
Yes, as always.